Hello, everybody. My name is Lorna Maseko, Chef Lorna Maseko from South Africa, and a member of the Chef's Manifesto. Thank you so much for joining this session. I think you're going to get some really great nuggets from chefs from all around the world and hear their opinions and how they really are activists in making sure that we all have good food for all from across the world. Now, today's topic really is about the chef's role in accelerating good food for all. And the purpose for today is really to promote and champion chefs' voices and key actors in food system transformation. So I hope you guys are ready, you're excited. It's going to be a really great session, and I think you're going to learn a lot and get some insight from all the chefs that we have on board with us today. Now, to kick off the session, I'd like to hand over to Paul, who heads over the Chef's Manifesto, and he'll really be touching on the Chef's Pledge, as well as the purpose and results, and basically what the next step is and what that looks like for all of us today. If you could go ahead, please, Paul.
Thank you, Lorna. And it's so great to be coming to you live from Rome, where I'm at the UN Food System Pre-Summit. So this is the summit before the main summit in September. And it's great to have people dialing in from all over the world to really look at how we can accelerate our ambition around the Sustainable Development Goals and also drive forward our work around the SDGs. The Chef's Manifesto Network is taking a leading role to further focus the SDG roadmap by asking chefs to come together with one collective voice to drive forward action throughout 2021 and beyond. And to do this, we brought together, the Chef's Manifesto worked with a number of networks. And so we worked with the James Beard Foundation, with World Chefs, with Social Gastronomy Movement, with the Good Food Fund China, with Le Cordon Bleu London, with the Chef Anne Foundation. And we reached out and engaged with chefs in 50 countries. And we compiled and brought together a survey to learn what chefs perceive to be the top practical actions that could enact change in this decade of action on the SDGs. And so we're now asking people across the chef world to sign a pledge that commits to one or more of the following practical actions, which we hope will create collective momentum to really rally greater attention and engagement of food system champions as agents of change at key global events. We believe that chefs together can change the world and are changing the world. And we believe that it's really important that we come alongside this UN Food Systems Summit in September and magnify the voices of chefs everywhere. And so we have the results of this survey. We've come up with 8 areas, 8 simple actions that provide a practical guide that chefs can use to deliver change in their kitchens. So the first one is tied to the idea of ingredients grown with respect for the earth and its oceans. And it says, I will get to know my ingredients, how they're grown, reared, or sourced. I'll choose ingredients with the lowest impact on the environment. Thematic area 2 is about biodiversity and improved animal welfare. And it says, the action is, I will lead by example to maintain the rich diversity of the world's natural larder by using different varieties of plants, grains, and proteins. I will champion wild variants and avoid monoculture. Thematic 3 is investing in livelihoods, which is so critical. And it says, I will get to know my ingredients. Who grows, harvests, sources, and packages them? How do they get to you? I'll investigate the journey from farm to fork. I'll choose ingredients with as few intermediaries as possible between myself and the farmer. Thematic area 4, valuing natural resources and reducing waste. I'll lead by example. I'll separate, monitor, and set targets to reduce food waste. Thematic area 5, celebration of seasonal and local foods. I'll use my purchasing power, buying locally produced foods in season and avoiding air freighted goods. Thematic area 6, a focus on plant-based ingredients. I'll lead by example, making vegetables, beans, and pulses the center of my dish. Thematic area 7, education on food safety and healthy diets. I'm going to be a community food champion, showcasing best practice on food safety, allergens, and nutrition in my kitchen and through my menus. And thematic area 8, nutritious food that's accessible and affordable for all. I will be a community food champion, supporting initiatives that provide access to nutritious meals. So these are the 8 areas. It's really critical to see these actions as a whole and really see how we use them to drive forward. So Lorna, I'm super excited now to hear from some of the chefs about what's going on here.
Fantastic. I think you've raised some really important points there, Paul. Chefs can and are changing the world around us. Now, let's kick off with Chef Anne. Let's talk about thematic area 1. Let's talk about how you source your ingredients, how they're grown, and give us a little bit more insight into how you do that in your area.
So I've been a chef for like decades and decades, but what I really do now is work on school issues. And when we talk about good food for all, I mean, kids and schools and food is just so important. And one of the things that's happening for us with my foundation, the Chef Anne Foundation, is trying to get school chefs, the chefs in schools to really back this important idea around good food for all. So in this specific thematic area, when we talk about ingredients grown with respect, school food in America serves about 7 or 8 billion meals a year. So it's a tremendous opportunity to change how we do things. And so what we did at the Chef Anne Foundation is we sent out our own survey and brought together a group of people in school food to start to really talk about all the thematic areas. And in this specific one, we came up with the ideas of connecting farms to schools, offering regional produce grown with sustainable or regenerative practices, serve regionally sourced proteins such as seafood, poultry, eggs, dairy, pork, and beef, pay farmers the true cost of their food, and support fair wages for the farm workers. And when you think about how many meals school foods really produce, these 8 billion meals a year, if we can get schools all across the country to really start to make this important difference, then we can change everything. And when we talk about good food for all, one of the things that's really important is universal meals. Having free school meals for every single child, breakfast and lunch in America, could just change everything. And I hope that's something that can happen around the world. But in America, it's never happened. And right now it is happening because of COVID. But if we could do that, if we could feed every child healthy food in schools, if we could do all of these thematic areas, if we could really source our ingredients and know where they come from and make sure they're healthy and make sure they take care of the farmers and the farm workers and the health of the planet and the health of the kids, I mean, we could change everything. And that's really what we're trying to do here, what's really important to me and what's really important to the Chef Anne Foundation. So thank you, and I hope that helps you understand what we're working on.
I think that's amazing. I think when you start teaching kids, you almost building onto a generation beyond us and beyond, years from now. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. We'll move on to Chef Mega, who I absolutely love. Everything you cook on social media, I'm always like, oh, please send it to me. I know that you're doing some amazing some amazing things in your country. I want to just chat about thematic area number 2, which really just talks about the protection of biodiversity and improved animal welfare. Now, I know that you definitely lead by example in maintaining the rich diversity of the world's natural ladder by using different variety of plants, of grains and proteins. So just elaborate on that for us, please.
Hi, Mona. Hi, everyone. I'm Meghan from India. And I just wanted to say, the first thing that I wanted to say is that we eat 3 meals in a day, and each meal is a vote. I'm just casting a vote either for the health of the planet or for something that will damage the planet. So just use this wisely. As a chef, I have for thematic area too. I have first of all, I launched a campaign called the Future 50 Food Campaign, which I ran for 2 years in my restaurant, where we celebrated two Future 50 ingredients in our menu. Not only did we showcase them on our menu, but whichever guest ordered a Future 50 food dish would get a recipe card that would give them the recipe so as they could recreate the same dish at home. And they would also be connected with the suppliers of that particular ingredient. Because I feel that people are very apprehensive when it comes to trying out more biodiverse ingredients, because they feel that there are a lot of roadblocks. Where will I get this ingredient? How will I cook this ingredient at home? Chefs can cook it because they have this fancy setup and these fancy equipment, but I don't think I can use this at home. So I think it's our job as chefs is to eliminate the fear that people and these roadblocks that exist in everyone's mind about biodiverse ingredients. The second thing that I did was I launched a Thali festival. A Thali is a traditional Indian meal. It's this huge plate that has different components of dishes from whichever part of the state or from whichever part of the country you are in, whether it's a pickle, whether it's something in yogurt, it's the traditional Indian balanced diet. But I use the Thali to champion ingredients from different states that were not known. So every month I would showcase the thali of a different state of India, because I feel as a country, we ourselves are very ignorant. Me as a chef also, I did not know about many ingredients that existed in my own country. That. Then as far as animal welfare is concerned, I feel that we as chefs need to we need to be aware of where our produce is coming from, whether the poultry is cage-free, whether the eggs are cage-free eggs, whether the fish is in season, whether it is sourced sustainably. So I think we need to educate ourselves, and then whatever information we end up getting, we need to spread it through our social media. And we have a voice that people really listen to, and we should use that. That voice is what I feel. So yeah,
Amazing.
I think 3 minutes are up. So
amazing. I love the idea of the cards that you give that just helps educate people a little bit further. I think that's really insightful and really, really a clever concept as well. Let's move on to Chef Christina, who's based all the way in Italy, where everything's happening. Let's talk about the investment in livelihood and what you have pledged in terms of how you choose your ingredients and the few intermediaries between yourself and the farmer, basically farm to fork.
Hello, everyone. This interesting webinar that I'm participating to is so inspiring. So how do I choose my ingredients? I've always chosen my ingredients based on the person, on the farmer. Not exactly, I mean, there's a kilometer zero policy here or philosophy that people believe into, but I've always been keen on understanding if the farmer is actually growing something correctly and ethical in an ethical way. Much more than knowing that basically was 100 meters from my restaurant. For me, that is important, but not as important as knowing that that person really is passionate about it and follows ethical rules to actually grow it. Now, there's a program that I launched on my association here in Italy that it's Adopt a Farmer. That involves exactly that. Basically, every restaurant, every chef decides to adopt a person that has a particular product, especially if it is protecting our biodiversity. Because, you know, in reality, what happens is that domino effects, the more we support farmers, especially the ones that stubbornly continue, even though maybe they are in a loss, you know, financial loss, and they continue to actually grow products that are completely forgotten or they are not as marketable as others, what we are doing is that we are protecting biodiversity. So each of the ambassadors, basically each of the members, they adopt a particular farmer, they talk, so they educate people. But what is exactly the point? The point is the big question that Chef Manifesto has asked: what do you concretely do to help out, basically, as a chef, protecting biodiversity or you know, talking about these kind of products? Well, what we do and what we should do is actually getting interested even in the problems and difficulties that farmers have whenever they place a product on the market. And that is why it's so important to try to eliminate as many companies in between. But how do you do that? Well, there are some platforms here that are starting to grow. They basically allow you, even though they are not physically close, to buy directly from the farmers. And those are the ones that we should be supporting. Sometimes it's risky because those logistical platforms, they actually don't work that well. And also we are in the hands of, like UPS or whatever. But we really need to try. We need to eliminate so that the entire amount of money that we give to the farmer actually goes to the farmer and not dissected between, all the people in between. So what the concrete action is choose the product, educating people about the product, helping them out to get the entire amount of money that we pay for, and if we can, even a little more, to the farmer of our choice. That's it. Thank you so much. 3 seconds in advance.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think it is very important to communicate with the farmers, because that's where it really just does begin. And I think that's an important point that you raised there. Now let's move off to Chef Chris, who's based all the way in Chicago, and he'll be touching on the thematic area 4, which really speaks about the value of natural resources and the reduce of waste, which is also a very key point in what we're discussing today. Chef Chris, if you would go ahead and tell us your thoughts.
Thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. On behalf of World Chefs, I'm really happy to be part of this conversation. And within World Chefs, I chair the Feed the Planet Committee, which, along with the Electrolux Food Foundation and ISAC, we seek to empower sustainable cooking and eating among communities and culinary professionals across the world. Ultimately, we're about education and we're about action. It always has to be action. We've had a very strong focus on food waste. Because we recognize that we can do a lot of things in our restaurant, but also we have the power of the white jacket to change society that's around us. So when it comes to food waste, it's not the most attractive part of the whole sustainability equation. I mean, nobody is taking pictures of garbages and putting it in major newspapers. No chefs are being celebrated because they've reduced their food waste by 10%. But we know that this is a really important part of sustainability, as food waste impacts the entire sustainability system. If we reduce food waste, we purchase less food. That sends economic signals throughout the system to produce, distribute, and store less food. What that means on the bigger sort of macro scale is that we use less water in the production of food, less energy in growing, shipping, and storing food, and less human inputs as well. So by essentially focusing on food waste, we're able to make a really big impact. For food service also, it means that we can save money. We save money on how much food we buy and how much food we're actually disposing of. So, it signals for us professionals that we are actually valuing food as a precious and cherished resource. And it frankly means that we have well-run kitchens. But none of this happens in kitchens without substantial leadership, without a change of culture. And that's something that we've been pushing on very heavily. We see food waste as an essential KPI in the kitchen, right along with food costs, labor costs, etc. So how do you do it? Step one is you get a baseline. Understand how much waste is actually coming out of your kitchen. Most chefs have no idea how much waste is actually being produced. Secondly is to set a goal. We're going to reduce food waste by a certain percentage, then develop a system or use one of the systems that already exist so that you can implement it in your kitchen and you have a way to go about it. Then make it a group effort, track the results, get feedback as you're going along, and listen to the people around you, because a lot of times they have really good ideas for how you can further reduce food waste. And then, of course, when you hit that percentage, that's time to celebrate. That's time to have a reward for everybody. And then the other little trick there is don't try to change everything in your facility at once. So focus on one piece of back of the house waste, one piece of front of the house waste, and then as you're successful there, move forward. But the reality is we've seen firsthand how kitchens can improve performance and make a stronger commitment across the board to sustainability when they focus on food waste. So we've seen, that chefs, we at World Chefs, we developed a very simple tracking tool that people can implement in their kitchens. Other people use other, softwares that are out there specifically for this purpose. And then, of course, the trickle-down effect is really interesting, because when you focus on food waste, what we've seen across the board is all of a sudden everything else starts to happen, like we're talking about today. We see people purchasing more local food. We start to focus on other waste streams. What about those plastics, and what's coming in the back door, and what kind of packaging is around it? And then, of course, people focus on developing systems for composting. And that's an important point, because the composting thing, a lot of people think that is the solution to food waste. And while it is an important part of what we do, because we don't want to take food waste and simply throw it in a landfill where it's going to produce methane that'll contribute mightily to global warming, but the reality is that we absolutely, we need to compost what we have, but that is not the end all. The end all is, how do we purchase less food? And just one last really quick point, and that is, as I said earlier, the power of the white jacket isn't just about our restaurants, it's about the bigger society. And one thing that we've done is to take that idea, and along with the Electrolux Food Foundation and ISIC, we've implemented a program to teach school kids about food waste called Food Heroes. We've now taught over 30,000 kids around the world, and we know that they then take that information back home, and there's a lot of food waste at home too. So thank you very much, and I hope I got that in my 3 minutes.
That was really, really good. Thank you so much, Chef. I think one point that I love that you said was that making food waste a KPI. And I know that chefs are very goal orientated. And so if that's a KPI, I think people will, obviously then follow and hopefully do what we're trying to do, what we're trying to promote today. Now let's move over to Chef Mokgadi, who's based all the way in South Africa, like I am. Now, Chef Mokgadi, I know that the celebration of seasonal and local foods is a big passion of yours. Now, talk to us about that and elaborate, please. You're muted.
Sorry, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. No, I'm saying thank you so much for having me. And as you know, I'm back in South Africa, and we suffer from obesity, malnutrition or undernutrition, and food insecurity. So as a chef, I walk my talk, and I encourage my community to eat locally and seasonally through the menus that I create through The Plate, a pop-up restaurant that I do called The Plate with Chef Mokgadi. And for me, it's important because seasonal fruit and vegetables that naturally ripen in the sun are fresher, they taste better, they're more nutritious, because food loses its nutritional value the longer it's stored or sits while being transported. It's better value for money to eat seasonally. Produce is cheaper when in season, making fruits and vegetables more accessible to all, because a lot of people talk about how fruits and vegetables or produce is very expensive. But if you're eating seasonally, chances are you're getting better value for money, because you're going to get food as and when it's available. So it's accessible to everybody. Also, to support sustainability, local produce doesn't have to travel far, which reduces the food miles and environmental impact. So if food is not being freighted in, you can get it locally. It means it's easier for you, accessibility, but also the food miles, the traveling, you cut down on the traveling costs, which is, impact on our environment. Then I support and invest in local farmers and food producers. Those people, they need us as chefs to support their livelihoods, because as you know, with COVID, a lot of people lost their livelihoods. And for us as chefs to bring their stories to life, the farmer stories or the food producer stories, we need to include these local ingredients, these local seasonal ingredients on our plates, on our menus, to actually educate people around sustainability, and also to help these farmers and food producers for their livelihoods. So for me, I educate via social media, I celebrate food, I teach people around seasonal food. I'm that nag on social media. I'm always saying, this is what's in season, this is how much it's costing you, buy it now, it's in season, buy as much as you can. So people know that it's actually not that expensive to eat well. And also eating well means I'm supporting the local people, I'm supporting local producers, I'm supporting local farmers. So it's important for us to walk that talk as chefs. And it's easy for us to walk that talk, because we are, as Chef Chris said, the White Jacket gives us that privilege and that platform to talk about seasonal food and to talk about access to food. Because for me, fruits and vegetables, if we ate locally, I mean, can you imagine? We could literally really deal with food insecurity, especially here in South Africa. So for me, I push that at any given point, and you know, through what I do on the pop-up and also through social media. So it's really important that us as chefs use our platforms to bring attention to local foods, but also seasonal foods. And as you know, Mother Nature will tell you that seasonal food is actually better for you, even better for your health. You know, for winter now, all the oranges and lemons and, you know, citrus stuff is so cheap right now. So anybody can afford to be well. Anybody can afford to have the immune system boosted. It doesn't cost you a lot of money. It's cheaper now. So I push that in everything that I do as a chef. Thanks.
Definitely, I could vouch for that. You definitely do. Now, moving on to Chef Connor, who's based all the way in Ireland. I want to chat to you about making vegetables and beans and pulses the center of our dishes. Could you just share with us how you do that, which also speaks to the thematic area 6?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here today. From where I am here in Ireland, I spend a lot of my time traveling our little island and meeting farmers and so on to work within our restaurants. And the biggest thing I found and what I know is that Ireland, in farming terms, our biggest produce is beef. That's what 70% of our farms grow, and that's our biggest export. It's our biggest financial business here in Ireland. And beef and beef reared well is one part of our food system, but also plants, vegetables, and pulses is a huge part, where they can be grown more sustainably, where they are so good for us, packed with nutrients, and work really well within seasons. And how, talking directly with farmers, I found that here in Ireland, 10 years ago, we had over 600 vegetable growers, horticulturists. Today, we have less than 150 because we don't use the vegetables and so on as the star of our show. So I was determined a few years ago to kind of flip that on its head and make plants and pulses and vegetables, make them more accessible, being very creative with them as a chef, and make people that don't necessarily always eat vegetables want to eat them. And a lot of it was around the language that we use. I never used the word vegan, vegetarian, or plant-based on our menus. We celebrate food. So if this dish happens to be entirely plant-based, then it is. It's because it's a celebration of what's in season and what is at its best right there and then. And by being careful with the language we use on our menus and not labeling it to a certain clientele that are looking for a vegan or plant-based diet, to just being lovely food, we found that more and more people would eat our plant-based menus, not just because of the creativity, the flavors and textures and so on that we were putting together in terms of vegetables and different pulses. This in turn has led to us working more and more with farmers and looking for more and more vegetables and grains with farmers here in Ireland. And as chefs, it's not about what I want to cook. It's about what the farmer tells me is ready right now at this moment. And that's how we then determine what our menus will be. So to me, the star of the show is the farmer. And as chefs, we have a responsibility to do the best with the food that they have, be it vegetables, be it meat, whatever it might be. It's up to us to really showcase it, but make sure that livelihoods and sustainability is at the core of everything we do, and not to label food. I find not labeling food, just celebrating food, has opened up a whole new diet for people that were traditionally always at meat. So for me, a focus on plant-based ingredients is a must for a better planet, for better farming, and yeah, use less language, more lovely food, and it's more accessible to everybody.
Thank you so much, Chef Connor. I think that really speaks to my heart, because South Africans love their meat as well. And I think if we just change the language and just give people just great food, it doesn't have to be vegan. It doesn't have to be, well, you don't have to call it vegan. You don't have to call it plant-based. They're just having great food. And I think that's definitely a point that all of us can take in trying to make sure and encourage people to have good food, and also, you know, what they can and look after the planet at the same time. Now let's move over to Chef Elaine. Let's talk about the education of food safety and healthy diets in your region.
Hello, everyone. Yes, here at Le Cordon Bleu, our focus is on educating chefs, but chefs certainly are at the heart of being able to use their power, use their kitchens, use their menus to educate the public, particularly in the areas of food safety, healthy diets. They, I suppose, lead by example, and the evidence from the Chef's Pledge and what people are looking for when they're designing menus, and when they're looking at ingredients and speaking to farmers and making those choices, chefs really have a very powerful impact on how people eat. The idea of the menu is changing from many different concepts. The old style of labeling food and having specific I suppose squared off boxes in how we talk about food is changing dramatically. So at Le Cordon Bleu, our emphasis for the last few years has really been looking at suppliers, looking to chefs in the restaurants, looking at the next generation of chefs and really speaking to them and finding out what they want to learn. And one of the things that has certainly come about is looking at sustainability, education on food safety, nutrition for chefs, and how they can implement that into menus. And then how they can, when they go out there, how they can implement that into their own food concepts. So chefs really are spreading the word through technology, through their video, through their voice on social media, and how they speak to their suppliers. The choices that they make in terms of the freedom to be more creative and the freedom to apply innovation into their new menus, their new ideas and food products. One of the key things that we've looked at in Le Cordon Bleu is at the higher education level, training from masters to degree students, and the skills of a chef. What we've incorporated is modules on sustainability, getting out more, bringing more suppliers in, looking at the ocean, looking at the land, talking about soil, and really ingraining these ideas into the skills and techniques of how we train chefs now, because then students go out there and they open up their own restaurants, they start working in hotels, restaurants, developing new products, and then they're demanding these things within their own working environment. So the work environment is changing, people's attitudes are changing, and chefs are really at the center of that. In how they talk about gastronomy, bringing their culture, bringing their food values out into the public. And they really are spreading the word in this way. So the educational institutions are driving change, but really it's the young chefs and the next generation that are having a huge impact on how the choices people make.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chef Elaine. Now let's move over to Brazil with Chef David. Now let's talk about the supporting initiatives that provide access to nutritious meals in your region.
So I'm so happy just to be here with people coming from all over the world. Congratulations, Paul, and all your team. So as you mentioned, I'm coming from Brazil, which is one of the epicenter of COVID, with a government that is using this crisis on their behalf. And before I talk about the solution, I want to remember, like, when we talk about nutrition, fruits and vegetables are the first items families take out of their menu. After it's meats and dairy. And what we learned this weekend is that now families in Brazil are taking out rice and beans because they're 50% more expensive. So 19 million people are facing hunger and 55% of food insecurity. So people are eating ultra-processed food, and this is an economic, social, and political issue. So while people are relating to nonprofits to eat, we have seen individuals from the favelas self-organize and engage their own community. So Gastromotiva, the nonprofit I started 16 years ago, the DNA is training and education. And when COVID hit us, we had all our students, our former students, turning their houses into solidarity kitchen, delivering meals to 950 million people in these communities. So what we understood over this year is that they can become these community food champions, like Paul said, from their community to their community. So now we are expanding this project to the Amazon, to other regions, and turning these new solidarity kitchens in centers. So in our meal that we deliver, they are biodegradable. We always put vegetables. There is always one organic item. They bring volunteers from their community to build that. So it's a whole new level of solidarity kitchen that becomes social kitchens to train people and to bring better diets, better opportunities to the communities. And what we're seeing is around the region, so many other projects. And as one of the people, as the social gastronomy movement, I'm happy to see the role of chefs becoming engaged. So in Brazil, we have Rodrigo Bandeira from Mocotó, 50's Best, who every day in his restaurants feed 200 families. Just like what Daniel Home is doing with 11 Maximum Park, delivering 500 meals. So I think the role of a chef, and I couldn't agree more with Elaine, the next generation will be more engaged with sustainability, with social. And that's what I believe, like making these partnerships with these organizations. In Latin America, we have Comida para Todos. So this coalition, this cohesion of ideas is what makes the social new business, the nonprofits who are relating and delivering what the governments are not delivering. So that's my contribution. We are all advocates for the people in need to eat better, healthy, and to have opportunities to make their choices.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chef David. I think a few people have now mentioned how important education is, as well as how the next generation really has to be given the baton so that they're able to do what they need to do to make sure that everybody has good food. Now, moving on to Chef Arthur, who always has words of wisdom and always encourages us to just hold this thing and not give up. And Chef Arthur, let's talk about making the pledge and the commitment. Why is it important for chefs to bother and make this commitment?
Hi, Lorna. Thanks so much. You did a brilliant job holding it all together. And hello to all the chefs. It's wonderful to hear all of the voices. Really super powerful stuff coming here. Yeah, look, let me just open up this conversation so we understand where we're standing. You know, we know as chefs that we have to drive structural changes into our food systems. We need nutrient density, plant biodiversity. We need sustainable food systems and packaging. You know, food arrives in packaging constantly. We must drive change. And, you know, as chefs, we are uniquely placed as actors in the food systems to generate change. The future workforces in the kitchens are a powerhouse for change. You know, chefs know the importance of food, and you know, it's not just chefs that communicate their values through food. People communicate through social media across this planet every day what their values are through food, and those values are changing. And chefs' voices and how chefs impact on people's lives is driving change. There's never been a more important time for this planet to value its food system. And as chefs, we're uniquely placed to drive that impact. Chefs and their menus can maintain the rich diversity of the world's natural larder. We need to support it. We can support it. You know, our menus are important. And we need to lead instead of following. You know, chefs in the food system need to stand up and take innovative, influential positions on food and say, this is the way that we need to drive change on the planet. We need to influence, we need to innovate, we need to show consumers game-changing initiatives. Food consumption should not be allowed to undermine nature. There is no point in having a menu or eating food that costs the earth. We need street level discussions. We need people talking about this on the street. And that's where chefs come in. We come in on food trucks, in juice bars, in sandwich shops, fish and chip shop, pizza places. I mean, there's a chef on every corner. All of us have a voice. And so all of the chefs across the planet, if we're going to talk about food positively, involving nature, talking about seasons, talking about health, this is why the food community needs to be able to pledge how these changes can take place through their food initiatives, whether it's a menu, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's at home, whether it's on a market stall. We need to pledge to change. The Sustainable Development Goals are big, they're complex, they're rich, but the Chef's Manifesto simplifies it. It gives us a tool of ways that we can manifest change through our food. So connect, get involved, pledge, be a chef just in your own home, in your own kitchen, with your own saucepan. Drive change by the way you buy your food, the way you refuse to buy your food. And, you know, as chefs, we definitely influence this planet. So if I can encourage everyone to, if you're not a chef, become a chef in your own mind, buy food in that way, support the planet in that way, and sign up to the Chef's Manifesto, because ultimately it's a people's manifesto to change the way the food systems operate. And it's so fantastic to hear all the chefs' voices. The Chef's Manifesto is getting so much stronger. It's brilliant to be connected to the United Nations Food Systems Summit. And this kind of pre-summit is good energy. But, you know, we really need to drive change. That is a perfect opportunity. And by 2030, if we can generate the change that we're talking about, then we're winning. So pledge, communicate, connect, influence, innovate. You're all doing it.
I love it. I told you he was going to drop the mic and just walk off. He always has such great words to encourage us to all just make the change. Like he said, influence, innovate. And the Chef's Manifesto has made it so simple for all of us to get behind this cause and really commit. Now I'm going to just hand over to Paul, who's going to wrap everything up for us. We've had some really great insights. It's been such great conversations, and I've been really encouraged to keep going.
Yeah, no, I'm just want this to go on. I'm sitting here thinking, how can we plan to run another 5 of these in the next 5 days? Like, just the insights. I've been trying to keep up with the chat. There's people from all over the world literally on this chat. I've seen people shouting out from all different walks of life, different styles of cooking, scientists, all kinds of others coming in, and it's great. And thank you for the chefs that are jumping in there furiously as well and adding in comments and content. This is a time where we actually have to change, as Arthur said. And so it's really important we come together. And I'm so excited that we have, through the Chef's Manifesto, these partner networks, which are massive, you know, Chef Anne Foundation, Cordon Bleu, World Chefs, James Beard. Like, there's so many of these networks that have chefs and are doing amazing work. And they're really doing their part. And, you know, the good thing is we don't all have to do everything, but we all have to do something. And this is something that I think is really critical. We have to lean into where we're passionate, where we can drive change, where we can make change. And the idea of this pledge is to really ask people to stand up and to do it, and to say, I'm in, and I'm going to do what I can do in the place that I am at. And as I think Arthur just said, not just follow, but actually lead. And so many of the chefs that spoke today all the chefs that spoke today are leaders in their kitchens, their country, and the world, in really driving forward this agenda. And so I've got a couple of quick points that we'll pull up on a slide just to give you as we close out. But I'm just really encouraging you. This is the pre-summit. This is the start. We're hoping to really see something really big. We want to be able to bring a commitment by chefs, hear more stories, to be able to do this and to see chefs signing up and really doing it. So I think there's a slide here. It's got some links. If you want to follow along to the story, check out the Chef's Manifesto Instagram at Chef's Manifesto. There's also many of our partners have Instagrams, and we try and showcase them. follow them as well. We will just try and get voices out there. Follow along with the hashtags that are there. There's a lot of conversations and other sessions, and it's good to see chefs in those sessions using their voices as well. I think we had Michael Alegbede speak earlier today. We've had other chefs in different parts. I know Christina's been doing media in Italy. Like, there's lots of conversations going. So continue to get involved. Check out also Good Food for All, the United Nations Food Systems Summit's public engagement campaign. Share what you think good food means to you. But I encourage you, join up, keep up to date with what's going on, sign the pledge, and check out the details for that on the Chefs Manifesto Instagram. So I just want to say a huge thank you to each of the chefs for sharing and staying to time. It's really hard to do that in this short time, but you were so on point. So really, really appreciate it. And thank you also to our lovely moderator, Lorna Maseko, who just manages to weave together the conversation so well with such grace and energy. And so thank you, Lorna, for really being with us. But over to you to close out.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining the session. Like I said, there were great nuggets that everybody can take and make actions in your different countries and in your different regions. Like the chef said, it's about educating people. It's about passing the baton on to a younger generation. It's about leading from the front, because chefs have a voice and are able to make the change. So influence and innovate, as Chef Arthur said. And don't forget to follow @Chefs Manifesto on social media, on Instagram, as well as Good Food for All and UN Food Systems to follow what we're doing and what chefs are doing from around the world. This has been absolutely great. Thank you so much. And we will see you all next time.
Thank you, guys.